Introducing
Pretty Girls Love Real Estate. Stories of everyday women breaking barriers and building wealth through real estate.
Let's get it. Boss. BOSS.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Pretty Girls Love Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Washington, and I am super excited today for my guests. I have with me Miss Kendra Whitaker Shine. She is a realtor in the DMV market for the last, I want to say 15 years or so.
Close, like 12.
Okay. And then she was also one of my fellow classmates in the Capital Impact Partners Equitable Development Initiative. So we're going to talk all about that and just all the exciting things that she has going on now. So first off, Kendra, how are you? What's going on?
Hey, Jess, I am doing well. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be able to come here and chat with you.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. So let's go from the beginning. What made you interested in real estate in the first place?
Oh, that's a very good question. So I started out back in, 2009. I was actually 2008, 2009. I was actually a teacher in DC public schools. And I had a pretty good job, but I started to realize that because I also was a teacher during the time that Chancellor Rhee was there. And at that time, they were kind of rifting people or firing people like left and right. And I realized I didn't have control of my future, right?
Mhm.
I was like, my employment that I thought was secure was in the hands of someone else who just came up here one day and just started firing people.
Cleaning house, right?
I was like, oh no. And I was watching the teachers that I grew up, with being scared about whether they had a job. And my mother, who was highly qualified, was never fired, even still had that same energy of, oh my God, what is she doing? Am I going to be next? And I didn't like that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my now husband, that time, who was just my friend, you know how we do, friend. He introduced me to the Kiyosaki kind of way of understanding investments and understanding how you have to be in control of your future to be secure. I started to learn about real estate and investing, and these are things that, although my parents kind of knew about it, they didn't really know about it in depth. They didn't really know how or anything. Most people just bought a house here, bought a house there, and that was kind of it, not really diving into real estate. So that's how I came into real estate. I wanted to invest. I did when it came for the time for me to start investing, after I kind of learned what there was to know about investing in real estate. I realized that I had no money, I had no anything, and I couldn't get started. So I said, well, let me do the other side. Let me become a realtor and see, how where that takes me. So
learn while you earn.
It's right. It's exactly. And then towards the end of 2009, I became licensed, went full time, quit my job as a teacher into real estate March 2010.
Okay, so you've seen vast changes over that time in the DC market. So tell us about your experience with those transitions.
It's very funny because when I hopped into real estate and I quit my job, my dad was like, "Are you crazy? Ain't nobody buying houses around here now." And I'm just like, well, if I can survive now, then I'll definitely be able to survive later. So what we decided to do, we were both very young, and my husband and I, now husband, we were both young in our mid-20s. Matter of fact, everyone asked us at our first office, they were like, "Are you legal?" Like, we must have really had, some serious baby faces. But we went into Virginia, where we knew no one. Everyone that we knew, or everything that we knew, was in DC and Maryland. But we went into Virginia because we knew that our network was going to look at us like, "Oh, y'all just babies. Y'all don't know what you're talking about. This is, this is craziness, right? You need to go back to get your job." So we went to Virginia, got started there, and people gave us a chance because they didn't they didn't know our background and where we came from to be able to determine that we weren't going to be able to do, what we need to do. So we went to Virginia, Northern Virginia, Alexandria, started with Whitaker, built ourselves up. And we survived, right? So we were able to do business. And as the market changed, we just kind of were able to stay afloat and maintain. Now, we had some personal life changes. We got married in 2015, had kids. After that, I kind of stopped. I slowed down as I began to, stay home with my children. So, when the market was really starting to climb back, I wasn't working quite as much. I kind of just took whatever work kind of fell into my lap. But all in all, we were working with investors the whole time. So we were able to find them deals, get them to, they would take it, renovate it, and then we relist it. So during that whole process, we would watch them. We would go into the properties, take a look at the, during the phases. If they asked us our opinion about anything in design or whatever, we would let them know. And we would try to learn from them as much as we could.
Right. So how did that transition into a desire to want to do your own development?
Well, it was our desire from the first place, but like you can imagine, we got a little comfortable, right? We just go, this is working, and then just never took the first step to buy our own property or anything like that. We just kept delivering the deals to other people, and eventually it was actually 2019 where I was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do my first deal. I was able to do my first wholesale deal in 2019. And since that brought me more than I would have had as a realtor, I was like, well, why am I still selling real estate?
Look, we just had a conversation about that.
Yes. It's like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Now, by this time, though, the struggle is that so many more people were into wholesaling, and it was like, it has become harder and harder to be able to find deals. Not only that, the price of real estate had appreciated so much that there was very little equity left available to be able to find those type of good margins where you could do wholesale deals. And to be quite frank, a lot of owners were like, well, I'm not going to, you getting this big fat check? No, I'm not wholesaling. I'm going straight to the investor myself. They send those letters, I'll just call them myself. And I'm like, okay, but they just not going to give it to you. Right. It's not like they're going to increase their price because you're not using a wholesaler or a realtor. They're just going to just give you the same price. So, but it has become more competitive, particularly in these last 3 to 5 years. In the DC area, where home values have really appreciated, because like in Anacostia in the south, east of the river, you could find deals less than 100,000 back then. It was $50,000, $60,000, and so forth, and you can get them renovated for about $50,000 or $60,000, and then you could sell it for $200,000 or $300,000. Today, you're getting a piece of junk for like $280,000, $350,000 or something like that. And the best you can hope for is a $400,000 to $425,000 or maybe $450,000 for a resale value.
Yep. And those are that's probably the last area that's relatively affordable.
Exactly. That Congress ties to Anacostia. So at this point, it's almost just like, and then people are starting to reduce the quality of their workmanship, right? Because now the margins are so thin. They didn't have enough money to actually do a quality renovation.
Right. And then just lumber prices and the supply chain, everything's like the price of everything changes on a daily basis. So
exactly. It just, it wasn't working. And in 2020, as I was exploring this, particularly while we were all home, I realized, I'm like, okay, so this isn't necessarily the way to go. And then a friend of ours, my husband and I, a friend of ours, mentioned the RFP process. And so we were like, okay, this is interesting. They got deals. And someone else had put a little bug in our ear to say, oh, the city's got deals that you should, kind of look and see what you can get. Now, what they didn't say was all the red tape and all the other stuff that comes along with it.
Yes. So talk about that, because I feel like most people, when they think about an RFP, they might think about like, government contracting for services, but you were trying to get a property or like some land from the city.
Yes, yeah. So just to be clear, the RFP is the request for proposals. DC offers requests for proposals or RFPs for their properties that they own. And they'll give it to you and they'll say, okay, give me an idea, give me a proposal. What do you think we should do with the property? And so my little team kind of gathered, it was pretty much 3 of us, and we kind of hired out or contracted out what we needed, like for instance, with pro forma help and things like that. But our little team came up with a little idea that we're like, oh, this will work. It was for school in Southeast and Malcolm X Elementary. They were, DC was like, well, we want this redeveloped. So we, not knowing what we didn't know, took a stab at it. It was almost like our naivety allowed us to, yeah, we didn't know that we didn't know. We just said, all right, let's just go for it. I mean, I actually assumed that it was a bunch of, common folks who didn't even really know the game as well. So turns out they were a lot more experienced than we. But as far as we made it to all the way down to the end of the process. We just were not one of the 4 finalists.
Nice.
So I mean, we were one of the 4 finalists. We just were not selected. Yeah. And at the end of the day, and we were proud of ourselves for having done it. We took the step, even though we didn't secure it. We took the step. We learned a lot. We learned what we did not know. And then since then, that was awarded in like May of 2021. Ever since then, I've been trying to get a handle on what I did not know.
Right.
So that RFP process was very, very life-changing for me in the sense that it gave me a little bit of courage to step out there, or a little bit of faith, to have my, come up with the ideas, build the team. I learned the value of teamwork, which I kind of already knew, but I didn't really know how much I was missing, because Jason and I had been a team for so long. And what I didn't do, he would pick up, and what he didn't do, I would pick up. But we didn't realize how much more support we could use outside of our own team. So that was a very, very good learning experience. And it was my first introduction into development on a larger scale. So building big multi-units, 50 units, 100 units, and so forth. And how it could, how that could work to benefit not only my family, but the community.
What, since you guys didn't win and, somebody else got awarded, what was your idea for the redevelopment for that site?
So that's a good question. And we're, we don't mind. Everyone pretty much presented large 100 to 200 unit apartment buildings. And we were like, well, no, that's the same old. That's what they're doing everywhere. We don't need any more of those, right? And so what we did present was an idea where it was kind of like a hybrid of home ownership, because I'm very, very big on home ownership and renting. And that with a little bit of community flair, where you could have like food trucks and things like that. When it comes to the residents, they loved ours the most. When it came to city buy-in, I mean, ours, we had the city buy-in that no one else had. But the people, at the end of the day, the committee who was selecting, they were like, we love you guys. You guys have millennial energy. We really want to see you guys come back again and apply again. We just didn't know. We didn't feel confident that if we gave you guys this deal, you'd be able to, we could leave you alone and trust you to do it, and not have to check in, or those things. We would have to, they didn't feel comfortable that they wouldn't have to support us more. And they were right. They would have had to hold our hands. So knowing what I know now, and this is just a year later, knowing what I know now, they were absolutely right. We didn't have all that. We didn't know. We would have found it. Yeah. And we were confident that we would have found it, but we didn't know that, and we can understand why they would feel that way. So
Well, yeah, I mean, now it's good to have an innovative idea. You just got to have the team in place to execute it. So
Absolutely.
now you know better. So was that the catalyst for you guys starting your nonprofit organization?
Yes. So, well, it was two things. The first organization was Gray Crown. Gray Crown is not a nonprofit, but it is a mission-driven development company. I started that. That's when I did my first wholesale deal, because I always knew that I'm not being a realtor. Haven't seen this whole transition and how this whole process. I watched, investors do lipstick on a pig, and they taking all the profits, and the owner's not leaving anything, and then that switched to the owner's like, you're not taking all my money and I'm not giving my house away, and it just became a mess, right? So I started to figure out, well, I felt there's a happy medium somewhere where I hope at the same time I wanted owners to realize, you're right, they shouldn't take all your money. However, the next person, which is not necessarily any of your concern, but they don't have enough money to make a deal work and actually renovate the house to the condition and the standards it needs to be renovated, if they don't have enough equity to be able to get to put the money in.
Right.
And so what you end up with is a bunch of houses where the new owners, the buyers on the, the consumers, the standard home buyers would buy the, and they're like, oh my gosh, this investor screwed me over. Oh my gosh, this investor did just lipstick on pig, yada yada. And then it was all the investors were bad. Right. Well, investors also, there's a 1% of investors look like us, right? So particularly in the larger development world, right? So I said there needs to be a change somewhere in there, and that's when I decided I wanted to fill that gap. Like I wanted to do more mission-driven development and investing in real estate such that it doesn't just benefit me, it benefits others. And we have a passion for rebuilding from the inside out, right? So we're not just letting other people come in to the city where we grew up and taking over. No. The way we see it is we ought to be reinvesting in gentrifying our own communities. And by that, we're bringing us all up together. And that's kind of like the basis and how we got into our how we wanted to start our 501c3. So M.O.R.E actually started because we wanted to help people with entrepreneurship. And Gray Crown was our development wing. Well, these two decided to meet and join forces, right? So now M.O.R.E actually focuses on both. It focuses on entrepreneurship and homeownership because the two are together, right? If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, everyone's physical needs has to be met first before they can do anything else, right? So we want to take people from surviving to thriving. That's our motto, going from surviving to thriving. And the way we do that is to make sure our shelters taken care of and our financial needs are taken care of. And we don't necessarily want people to quit their jobs, but if a side hustle can help, a side job, business or something, then we're for it. And if that side business becomes a full business where you can quit your job and be your own boss, even better, right? So that's, and when you do that, you have more time for yourself. Mental health is better. Your family is, you have more time for your family. You have more time to actually live a good life, a good quality life. May not get rich, absolutely, but you'll have a good quality of life.
Right. And you're building equity into something that you build as opposed to just giving all your sweat equity and your resources to somebody else's business
who won't pay you well enough to be able to stay in there. And that's another thing. If it's like, if you pay people more, they wouldn't necessarily leave to go out to, do their own thing. If a lot of these companies, they could afford to pay people more and they don't do it. So,
well, it's all about the bottom line, and labor or, your employees are your biggest expense. So, All right. So now we got to the point where we found out about Capital Impact Partners. So how did you find out about the program? And then tell people what the Equitable Development Initiative is, if somebody listening never heard of it before.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. So all right, it's the spring of 2021, and they're like, oh, you need help. We need money. Before I knew the answer, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to find some financing and get some help. So I'm Googling and I'm like, I need money. And I come across Capital Impact. I'm like, oh, okay, so what is this? They offer funds. Set up an appointment to speak with someone, turns out that someone is Seth. And Seth tells me about, I tell him a little bit what we're trying to do, that we're hoping to give this RFP because it hadn't been awarded yet. And so forth. I tell him that we were trying to get gap funding and things like that. I think he kind of could tell that I was a little bit of a novice here.
Yeah.
Because he did tell me about he tells me about, all right, well, we're doing the Equity and Development Initiative, the EDI program. And I'm like, oh, he said, we had a cohort that just finished, and you should talk to Kenya. I'll put you in touch with Kenya. She's no longer with the program anymore. Or with CIP anymore, but he puts me in touch, and I'm like, okay, I would love to be a part of this next cohort if you're going to do it. At the time, they didn't know if they were going to do it again, if they were going to have the funds. So I'm literally emailing them every week, hey, how's it going? Are we going to do the program? Hey, how's it going? And so I stay in contact, and then finally they tell me, towards the end of the summer, I think it was July or something like that, when the application round, hey, we're going to do it. Application round's going, and I get busy. Get my application going. And then I got the notice that I was accepted into that program in September. Very happy, ecstatic, because I'm like, I really think this is where I want to be. I had known that the real estate kind of thing as a realtor it was kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that millennials can't stay in a job more than 3
right,
to 5 years.
Antsy, yeah.
I knew I needed something different. So and this felt so much more rewarding, and what felt more like in line with what my purpose was and what I was called to do. So because I'm also big on working in your purpose and where you're supposed to be, so that you can make a deeper impact and still be rewarded and then not feel like working.
Yep.
So Capital Impact Equity Development Initiative is a program for emerging developers of color. So emerging, those who are starting and getting to know the business, and those who are of color, basically BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. And they basically give you training for development. So they teach you things about the pro forma, what all the parts of the capital stack look like, and it gives you all the gives you kind of introductions to different departments and resources and things like construction folks and things like that. So it's just like a high level overview. Well, it's not necessarily high level, but it's not going to give you everything you need to know, but it's a very good cover of what you need to know when it comes to developing. And I learned through that program how much more I need to learn when it comes to developing, because some of my cohort had already done their first 1, 2, 3, even 4 deals. Whereas me, I had not done a deal. I had just written, responded to an RFP. So I was very new to it, and I've been a realtor, so I'm familiar with real estate and investing, but not to. So it was a very good program, very intense, particularly when we first got started, but with those, with boot camps, but it was very good, very informative, and I would not change that experience at all. Quite frankly, virtual, our cohort happened to be virtual, worked better for me because I had a young baby. So
yeah, I would agree. It was definitely a very impactful experience, especially like you said, knowing a lot of things that you don't know. And it was good to actually go through the exercise of like going through the RFP with a fine-tooth comb and really knowing about every facet that you needed, like all the different people in your development team that you need to bring together to make something come to fruition. So
yes.
That was awesome. And I'm glad I got to meet a lot of people like you.
Yeah, I know. And then the crazy thing is too, because we're alumni of the same school. So it's like we're
Mhm.
bound to connect, same high school. So we're
Yeah.
bound to connect anyway. So that's great.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you said that because I meant to ask you about that. So you know, fellow Banneker alum.
Gotta
Okay.
give up. Woo woo.
So
Yeah.
you told me before you were involved in like the process of the new school that got built.
Mhm.
So what's going on with, everything with that now?
So, okay, I wasn't really involved necessarily in that process. They did have committees, but a lot of times, Miss Berger was keeping rightfully so. She was keeping a tight fist on that to make sure she got the things that she knew she needed. Miss Berger had been there since before I had gotten there, which is some
Mhm.
time. You see these
Right.
grades, that's been some time. And at that time, she was the PE teacher, health and PE teacher when
Yep.
I was there. So now she's a principal. She knew what had evolved over the past
Mhm.
20 years, and she knew what the school needed. So I thought that was great that Miss Berger was fighting so hard for the development of Banneker. But through that process, a lot of folks did not want. So Banneker moved from the Howard University community over to Shaw. Now it took the place of Shaw Junior High School, which is actually where I worked for my roughly 4 years in DC public school system.
Mhm.
My office was in that building as well. My mother has spent 20 years working there. So that building was very dear to me
Wow.
because, as a child, I would go up there to my mother's class
Mhm.
at Shaw. And then, and then for it to be torn down and replaced with my high school, it's just like, oh, wow, this is great. But the neighbors didn't want it. The community of Shaw, they wanted a middle school for their community. They didn't
Right.
want this high school, that kind of, I'm just be frank, it's minority. It's 95% Black, they didn't want that coming into that neighborhood, which had already been gentrified. They wanted a middle school there. So they fought, but the mayor had already promised it to Banneker. And we fought to make sure that, alumni did testimonies. The students were very impactful. The current students at the time were in there voicing their concerns. They were, protesting and letting them know, hey, you promised us this school and this should be ours. So that, for all you students out there, if you're listening, or parents of high school students, you have voices, use them, because
Right.
they will listen. They will listen to you. And that's what happened. So Banneker is built now. That I guess they just finished their first full year there. We went to the opening ceremony. It's a beautiful campus, smaller than they would have liked because they had to compromise
Right.
to make the neighbors, make sure the neighbors stayed kind of happy, which I understood. They built it on the same footprint as Shaw, which still blows my mind because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the same shape as Shaw. It feels so different, but that's the beauty of real estate. You'll look at a piece of lot and you're like, how on earth could that fit there?
Yep.
But certainly it can.
Well, we were long overdue because they had that old crumbly building for forever. And it was like, I don't know, jealousy because all these other high schools were getting renovated or getting new buildings. And I'm
Big
like,
fields.
I'm biased, but like objectively, like we're the best school in the city. Why
Number
are we
one
not
high
here?
school in the city, and we don't have a new school.
Exactly.
So no, we weren't feeling that at all. Speaking of which, we'll be doing fundraisers and galas and things like that we need to support, just to make sure that the kids do get their need. Because although we put our kids into a new building, they still have a lot of kids. It's still a Title I school, so a lot of kids still have needs. And the first step, put them into a new home. Right.
Yep.
So we put them in the Banneker. Second step is taking care of those actual, again, to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, taking care of some of those personal needs. So friends of Banneker still could,
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Definitely got to spread the word. I mean, like when I was there, it was the first year they were doing the IB program. And so it's like, y'all, the school wants to get this like global level recognition now. It's like, we got these old crumbly facilities. Like we need to have the best first class stuff so we can be on the map with,
absolutely,
some other top ranked schools around the country. So I'm just glad we finally got a new building and I need to go visit.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
All right. So what, since the Capital Impact Partners program, what have you got going on now? Any projects you care to share?
Yeah, so we're excited. Probably could use some more, use some community support too. So this is good. We Now again, our organization is passionate about home ownership because we desire to close the wealth gap. And so we are looking at a property in Northeast DC that we would tear down the existing structure and build some townhouses or condos. It just depends on what we can get approved with zoning. And we hope that, should we be able to, we're still in negotiations, almost complete with the sellers, but we hope to be able to close that deal and I guess have new homes up by the end of 2024.
Nice.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's a smaller project, but it would, what is our hope is that the folks that come through our program, again, our program is very new, so we have some, learning, learning to do. However, our goal is to be able to get our participants through the program, and those who need housing would be able to, or who want to purchase a home of their own, maybe they're first time home buyers, would go through us to be able to learn about what existing programs. So there are a ton of DC programs out there, DC HPAP. There's the EHAP, if you're an employee of Washington, DC. For those, many folks don't know about all the programs that exist, but we also want to supplement what exists, right? So we want to give them the homeowner education, help you get financially ready. We do financial literacy classes, and then we'll partner with organizations who do the homeownership training that's actually already qualified through DC and approved, if you will, through DC. And then once you finish our homeownership track, you would be able to, hopefully, we see that everything goes according to plan, you'll be able to get a grant towards your homeownership purchase. And that, because most of the grants and things that are already in existence are geared toward down payment assistance. But it's like, what do you do when once you put everything you got into your down payment, your closing costs, in the 1 or 2 months that they require you to have? It's like, okay, well, how am I furnish my house, or how am I going to do all the things? Now, these things need to be slow and go, slow as you go and as you can afford to do. But sometimes just a little extra support, a little grant to help you with another couple of months of reserve funds can help you. Or maybe you choose to do a repair in your house because you didn't buy a brand new renovation. You find out HVAC has another, I don't know, 9 months on it or something like that. So, down the road that you'll have to do that repair. So that's what our grant would do. It would help be supportive to what is already in existence. And we would help you through that. At the same time, you'd also be able to go through our entrepreneurship track where you could learn to start your own business. Perhaps you're a hairstylist, or you just got a cosmetology license and you want to rent a booth so that you can do hair, but you don't necessarily have your booth rent because you have all your other expenses. So you could use our microloan or grant to be able to pay your booth rent for a couple of months while you earn your money, and then you get on some solid footing or whatever, and then you'll be able to take your business ahead, be able to reinvest back into our program and go from there. So we're interested in doing small micro loans or micro grants, depends on what we can figure out there, to be able to help people go. We're all about taking people from surviving to thriving. So closing that wealth gap, that's what we're going to do. That said, although that is our first project, we are also looking for a potential rental community, whether it's a renovation or a new construction deal. We're also looking to do that. And we're looking for that to be in Northern Virginia.
Nice. Well, yeah,
or DC. Yeah, but either one.
that's so important because, like you said, like renting is good and like the national conversation and everything is about affordable housing, but the way to actually build wealth is to actually own. So helping people kind of shift their mindset to, all right, we want to get you to get in a place where you're comfortable, but you can build up your equity, build up your down payment, whatever you need, but we want to get you to be able to own something, not only your home, but your business, like you said. And then it's so important to keep circulating the money in our community within our community.
Yes. Yes.
And then just bring those businesses, bring those services back, owned and operated by people in the community.
Yes. And that's how we rebuild or gentrify from the inside out.
Exactly.
Right? Because we're circulating it back into our community, just like you said. So that's a passion of ours because it's great that everyone, 2020, I mean, this might be controversial or not, but it's great that everyone in 2020 said, oh, let's do equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Right.
Like, oh, that's the thing to do now,
it
right?
Sounds good.
But if you're going to keep us in the same cycle of where we've been so that you can still stay up on top, which I think the government, great. Okay, great. LIHTC is great. We now have funding to help try to keep development projects affordable. So the developers still getting paid their big check. The owners of these projects, are still getting their rent every month and they're still building their wealth. But the people on the inside, oh, great, they can afford their homes, but they'll be stuck in that affordable home.
Yeah, and plus the way that LIHTC works is that once you start making more money, then your rent's gonna go up. So it's like you're still kind of in that perpetual hamster wheel that you can't get out of. So
yes, so I'm torn because the thing with development, you make all the money in buying whole deals and owning rental properties, which I definitely want to do, and I definitely think there's a place for it, definitely a need for it. But I also have a passion for making sure we can push everyone forward. Like, right. Let's grow together. Let's do that together. I mean, really, is our life really that much richer just because we have all of the money in the marketplace, or is it richer when we all can kind of grow together? So
yeah, you don't want to be the only person at the top.
Because they will find a way to make you fall.
That's true. Yes, you want to bring everybody else with you. So definitely agree. Well, this was an awesome conversation. We could talk about this all day and catch up and stuff, but I want to shift over to the last segment of the show, which is called the Fabulous Four. I, ask all the guests these same 4 questions. So I'll go ahead with you. So first and foremost, what is your favorite book about real estate?
There have been so many. I was with KW and they did. I mean, the guy who runs KW has a bunch of books, but I must say that I think that the one book that was probably the most impactful or life-changing was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Me too.
It was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it changes the way you think about things. And at first, this is where I made my mistake. I thought that, okay, all right, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now I need to learn everything he did in all his classes. No. You don't have to do that. Everything you learn in all those classes is basically right there in that book. Take that book, let it guide you, and step out into practice. Find someone who could be a mentor, and go from there.
Yeah, and it's also good to reread it because when I first read it, it's like, oh, it opened up your mind. But then after you start doing stuff, moving and shaking, you go back and read it, and it's like some things you didn't catch. Like, oh, okay, now I understand more what he's talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, what advice would you give to your younger self when you were first getting started in real estate?
That's good. That's good. 2 things probably I'd say. 1, join a real estate team that exists. Link up with people who already are doing things. Like, I don't know whether I don't necessarily think I was arrogant, but I was maybe pig-headed or something and didn't believe that anybody wanted to help me and support me. And for the most part, it was true to some extent. I went into, Whitaker Realtors for there was no diversity, right? We pretty much, there was one other woman of color in there. and she was a part-time agent. And then it was the two of us, my husband and I, and we stuck out like sore thumbs. So the one thing we did not have was somebody who wanted to mentor us. And or who was available to mentor us. Those who were there full time and were doing a lot of business, they weren't interested in mentor us, because the folks that came after us that didn't look like us had mentors just like that.
Right.
And the one who tried to come for us was actually taking advantage of us. He wanted to take advantage of our ignorance. And I was like, you're brown, bro. How you doing that? he was like, what is that? He wasn't black, he was a Latino, but it was like, how are you doing that? Like, we need to stick together. We're all we got. So at that particular time, we had to do it all by ourselves. And, it was tougher. But if we had joined a team like some of the other agents, we would have had much faster success, just like they did. So.
Okay. But I do like to the point that you said at the beginning of the episode about how you wanted to go to a brand new area so that people kind of wouldn't have like a pre-existing notion about you. Like, oh, you're a teacher. What are you doing trying to do real estate now and not take you seriously? You can kind of just start over and shape your own narrative.
Yep. That's exactly what we tried to do. Well, we did. Not tried. We did. That's exactly what we did.
All right. So thirdly, what topic in real estate do you want to learn more about?
As far as development is concerned, I think I still stick with the pro forma being, one of the biggest things. I want to get that thing down like in my sleep. Like it's almost like you can never learn a pro forma too much, right? Yes. So that's where I want to strengthen my skills for sure the most.
Yeah, like I said, you can't be a developer until you know how to manipulate those numbers. For sure. Okay. And then the last one, it's not really a question, but can you please give a shout out to another lady in real estate?
Yeah. So I mentioned that there was one woman there who was at Whitaker when we first started. She was the only other POC Black woman in there. Her name is Beverly Tatum. I'm telling you, she has been a huge she has made a huge impact on our development, because we were very young. We were probably like the youngest people in the office, because the average age of real estate at that probably still even today is like I think it's like it's somewhere actually it's in the 50s or something like that. No, it's like lower 30s to 50, somewhere in that range. The average age was very, very old for most jobs, and we were like 24 and 25 to 6, something like that. So they didn't really want to take us seriously, but she was there. She told us what we knew. She wasn't a mentor per se. She was a part-time agent, and to this day she is still the only person that we really still talk to regularly from that office. And it's been over a decade. So she is, and she believed in us. She bragged on us. I mean, she helped us in so many ways. So Beverly Tatum is my shout out. I think she's a wonderful person. The way she stays connected is just a wonderful thing. So
awesome. Well, yeah, shout out to Beverly. And it's so important about having, even if not like a formal mentorship, just having somebody more experienced help point you in the right direction. Yeah. Or even like when you're going through stuff and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, just somebody that you can just lean on and
vent.
Yes.
A lot of venting going on.
Like, I'm tired of always not getting, this deal, or you're not winning the bid, whatever. Like, you just need somebody that can relate.
That's exactly what she was. She was a strong force that encouraged us to keep going, that we're doing a good job, even when we didn't have much of that, because we did not have it. I mean, I'm going to say, so there, I remember I was sitting at desk duty one day, and this was like, now I had just quit my job in DC public schools teaching. And one of the women was like, thank God that Michelle Reed is in there cleaning that place up. I mean, it's a wonder if those kids ever had a notebook. Okay, so you're talking to a Banneker student, right?
Right.
We know how heavy our book bags were with books and notebooks and things like that. Don't come for us, right? And don't sit up there and act like we weren't educated in DC public schools. It's, this misconception of what you're hearing on the media, that there's no one in DC doing well. We've got Rhodes Scholars. We've got Harvard, graduates and full ride recipients, not just Harvard, all the Ivy Leagues. We have plenty of people doing well. Y'all hear about 1 or 2 cases of, things going wrong, and you assume it's the entire system and that nobody has a notebook. Come on. I was so, obviously at that moment I was furious.
Right.
But again, I was new in this world. I didn't really know. So at that time, I didn't have the comfort that I would have had now to lay that woman out. But because I also, like, she was older. She was probably upper 60s or 70s. Right. I'm just like, you have no
in
clue.
Virginia.
In Virginia. And, it was just so much. And it's hard to believe that anybody would talk like that right outside of DC. But they did. So,
well, yeah. But anyhow, how can people get in contact with you, and then also give us any last words of wisdom?
Okay. Stay in touch. We would love to have your support. Our organization, as I said, M.O.R.E is very new, but we would love to have your support. We've been actually in Banneker for 5 years under M.O.R.E, but just not with the official, 501c3. But we do mentorship to the students at Banneker for their community service. They intern with us, and through interning with us, they intern at other businesses. So, for instance, State Farm, we have a State Farm agent who takes our students in, and she works with them and trains them for entrepreneurship and small business. And it's not that all of our students take entrepreneurship track when they're done, but they know their options, right?
Right.
So stay in touch through checking out our website, more2build.org. So it's more2build.org. You can learn more about our organization there. We would love support if you're interested in becoming a mentor. If you're interested in going through the program, hey, please, there's a place to apply and things like that as well. So stay in touch with us there. And I guess my wisdom, I don't know if it's wisdom or just a tip I would give, with no matter what industry you're doing or what you're exploring, stick with it. And for every door that closes, you might have to go through 100 closed doors to get to that one open door. And I'm here to attest to you, I'm still going through my closed doors in many ways. But I know that one open door that I need is coming. So stick with it, keep going. The man, they tell you about the man who stopped short of finding gold or the black oil all the time, like he stopped like a couple of feet short because he got tired. So don't get tired, just keep going.
Yes, perseverance, especially in this industry. It's like you could, people work for 10, 15 years before they become an overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Keep pushing because it's worth it. Yeah, the money, obviously, that's out here, and the recognition is out here.
It is there. It is coming. It's my time. Keep just believing in yourself. A lot of people are like, oh, this is all hype, but it really makes a difference. Oh, I would definitely say keep feeding your mind and putting yourself in good environments where that positive energy keeps you going, because that will help you to keep going so you don't stop short of that oil or the gold. So what you listen to matters.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. Oh my God, this was amazing. It was good catching up with you. Yes, definitely got to look more into your organization. I want to get involved, especially with anything Banneker related. So, but I'd love to, continue keeping up with your progress. And I know we'll be doing stuff as, alumni now of Capital Impact Partners.
Yes. We will definitely say, I'm glad we did this. I appreciate your inviting me. It's invaluable, even for me. So
thank you. Appreciate you so much. So we're gonna wrap up here, but thank you again for your time, Miss Kendra Whitaker Shine. She's amazing, and she's doing so many great things in DC and beyond. So keep up with her progress and her organization more. So thank you again, and signing off here. Have a good one.